Whether you have played Superstar Saga or not, you missed these details, and to rectify that, I'm going to show you all of them, so you don't have to live with that guilt. So let's continue into Bean Bean Castle. We got the Bean Star and now we need to deliver it to Cackletta, but to get to the delivery point we need another hammer upgrade from the Hammerhead Bros, who for the third time are scamming us of our time. But instead of getting irrationally angry, we raid their basement to get some new Bros attacks. However, it's a little odd that the Hammerhead Bros have apparently held Bean Bean Kingdom's last remaining Thwomps hostage underground, with them forcing them to run a Bros attack gambling operation. This mistreatment of Thwomps implies that the Hammerhead Bros have a deeper, maybe even discriminative hate for rocks and rock people, which we should have probably seen coming when they create hammers for a living. But with our hammer more discriminatory than ever, we can make our way to Joke's End utilizing Luigi as a surfboard. This unexpected contortion of Luigi is a weird way to find out Bro has a side hustle as a contortionist, but I guess we should have known this with how he is able to contort himself into the ground to get under gates. This contortionist occupation also explains how Luigi hides his tail from everyone 24/7. And now that we are in Joke's End, we won't be able to be funny anymore, not due to its name, but mainly because this repetitive music track for Joke's End was specifically created to grate down on any joy until there is nothing left. Though as we attempt to enter the Joke's End Palace, we run into Jojora, who is the buddy of the cousin of the descendant of the spirit who once guarded this palace, who now guards this palace. But considering this, it's weird that Jojora guards this palace when her ties to this palace are extremely loose, implying that she must have actually taken ownership of this palace with underhanded methods, kicking out the old palace guard, making her the new palace guard of the palace, which is Joke's End Palace. With us finally in the palace, one of the main enemies we encounter in Joke's End are ice sniffets, and while it is true they sniff ice literally, they also metaphorically sniff ice, with their noses being able to smell the difference between fake diamonds and real diamonds. As we continue deeper, we notice a trend of Jojora constantly taunting us as we successfully make it past previous obstacles. While this may seem harmless standalone, what she said actually hurts some players' feelings, and in younger players sometimes even caused frustration or tears depending on their tendencies. Thankfully though, it wasn't enough to cause any mental harm to anyone, and honestly, getting upset at these simple jabs from an ice spirit is quite stupid, and anyone who would get sad by it clearly isn't emotionally mature, and I just don't even know how you could get sad by this. The second main enemy are Clumps, and there really isn't much about these guys that can't be gathered by a first glance. However, with their clubs combined with their strength creating shockwaves, it's a miracle the ice castle doesn't shatter under the weight of all these strikes, implying that the temperatures have to be at least under negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 50 degrees Celsius to survive these forces without so much as a scratch. During the Joke's End jumping minigame, this weird portal appears in the center that provides each bro with blocks to hit, but looking closer at the portal, it looks like it also might function as an eye with a pupil in its center. This actually implies that Nintendo has cameras implanted in every single Game Boy and was spying on everyone who had a Game Boy since their inception, which also explains why they made the barely functional Game Boy camera to give us a false sense of security by making us believe there wasn't already a camera in every Game Boy. And finally, after every joke has been ended, we make it to the top of Joke's End, where Jojora seems to have a change of heart and decides to serve us tea. Well, this is the case until Hina shows up and starts a fight with the bros. While this may seem like another one of Jojora's tricks, her dialogue indicates that she thinks that this battle is actually taking care of her guests, which must mean that Hina has actually brainwashed Jojora into thinking this is how you treat others with hospitality. So essentially, Hina gaslit, gatekept, and girl-bossed Jojora's morals, distorting them terribly at a young age. However, even though she was tricked into becoming a trickster her whole life, in the years to come after her morals were corrected, she became a public defender lawyer for those who cannot afford one. With Jojora's character development over and Popple seeing through our fake Beanstar, our infinite series of plans finally works when Luigi dressed as Peach infiltrates the Koopa Cruiser, which weirdly enough seems perfectly laid out for Luigi's escape. This wouldn't have been done by Cackletta, which must mean that as the Koopa Cruiser crashed at the beginning of the game, some of Bowser's minions stayed behind on the ship, filling it with countermeasures in case the ship was stolen after the fact. This also means that these minions must have passed away due to the ship's impact, so let's have a quick moment of silence for these minions. Luigi's escape lands him in quite a predicament, with him instantly getting captured again, but this time by Popple, who has somehow convinced Birdo to become his new rookie. With this being the fourth and last time we'll run into Popple, it's a little sad to see he's practically had no character development throughout the whole game, with him still wanting to steal and take down the bros. While many attribute this to pure stubbornness, this is actually due to how similar Popple looks to the average Smash Bros. Melee player, which of course Nintendo hates, causing them to stunt Popple's character growth because they want to see him get beaten down by the bros more due to their hatred of Melee. And of course, since we just left Cackletta to our devices, she also went ahead and stole Bowser's castle and bombed the Bean Bean Kingdom for the second time. So we take a ride on Blablanodon to stop her for good this time. Though as we start making our way through the palace, we start to see how heavily guarded this palace is, with us getting instantly shot by the gunner guys. These guys look as though they were sniffets whose snouts grew so long that they lost all mobility due to their weight, but if you look closely, clearly their snouts grew a pair of legs along with its size, leading us to wonder why each gunner guy still needs to be pushed, implying that the snout grew a brain in unison with its legs, and all gunner snouts are doing a collaborative protest where they won't walk in unison with their guy unless they receive half of each guy's pay. And while we were starting to make our way through Bowser's castle, before we even make our way to the meat and potatoes, we run into a platforming section that looks deceptively easy. With this in mind, the bros run into this confidently, but unfortunately fail multiple times over, which mentally takes a toll on them. While nothing happens to them physically or stat-wise, the bros will both remember this moment of their failure at random times during the day, causing them to kick themselves about it in hindsight. And finally, we make it to the first of many Koopa kids who have been tricked to fight us, due to Cackletta having Bowser's body, which is Iggy. Iggy's game plan is to spin so fast that the bros get extremely dizzy. However, noting that Iggy doesn't get dizzy nudges us to realize Iggy must have a lot of experience in figure skating to avoid this dizziness. But knowing this, it's a little weird he doesn't compete professionally, until you realize that logically he can't compete professionally because after that he would most likely be self-sufficient and wouldn't be a Koopa kid anymore. The second Koopa kid we encounter is Morton, and to get past him we need to jump over the many shockwaves he is creating on our bridge forward. While he does jump every time a shockwave occurs, I doubt this is what actually causes the shockwaves. What's actually happening is Morton is sacrificing and then sending a bit of his aura at us every time he jumps. While this does somewhat work, after his aura runs low, the bros defeat him, and due to this aura loss, he loses his girlfriend. The third kid we encounter is Lemmy, whose ability allows him to create a bunch of clones. He does this through a bunch of spinning leading to his dizzy eyes, but even though he is dizzy, he still stands firm on the battlefield. But to keep this firmness, he only uses a simple fireball attack so he stays stable on the ground. And judging by the simplicity, it shouldn't be too hard for his clones to also do this attack, but they never do. Why this is explained in Lemmy's diary, where we learn how if Lemmy's clones are given the ability to act on their own, they are too friendly and distract him with requests to play checkers that he physically can't decline due to his intense love of the sport. The fourth we encounter is Ludwig von Koopa, who utilizes retreating into a shell to attack the bros. However, with how much his shell shrinks, his body must be able to compress into extremely small spaces, which means his mom must be an octopus. This explains his compressibility and also why his tooth looks like an octopus beak. The fifth Wii is Roy, and as soon as we encounter him, he flies away. This is odd, since it's Roy's job to stop us from reaching Cackletta, so why did Roy just abandon his duty? What actually transpired here is Roy recorded us using his meta glasses and had to check the footage to see if we were really the Mario Bros, which, after confirming, causes him to fly back to ambush us. The sixth is Wendy, and during her battle she seems to be able to create damaging light rings with her bracelets. Though, funnily enough, while she uses them to damage us, she also uses them as life preservers when she works as a lifeguard on weekends. Seventh and last is Larry, and to pass him we need to beat him in a game of tennis, but with a bomb threatening our every move. While this bomb would be enough to scare Luigi into not moving, since he's in a barrel, he cannot see it, which is why we are able to beat Larry and pass on to the next area. Right before we are able to finally face Cackletta, we run into Popple one last time, and after he evolves, we start to fight him. The whole fight is based around his armored state he hides in which we need to coax him out of. This is not only a good way to mix up a boss fight, but also tells us about Popple's current mental state. Since beans usually start off in shells, Popple creating a shell for him to hide in even after he evolved and gained strength shows an extreme doubt in his current abilities. And with so much doubt in oneself, it's not surprising he relies on Cackletta all throughout this game. And finally, we run into Cackletta, currently sitting on Bowser's throne in her Bowletta form. Quickly after she spots us, this turns into the final fight, though as we fight her, it's a little weird Cackletta still needs those little pink things sticking out of her head in her Bowletta form, implying that these pink rods are what allows her to tap into her witch powers during combat. And of course, Bowletta wouldn't have been the end of the fight, and after getting sucker exploded and inhaled, we face Cagletta's soul. While we do start this phase on 1 HP, if we survive her first onslaught, her weakness quickly becomes apparent when her heart starts to bulge out of her chest, though seeing her heart this large makes it harder to believe she's been this evil throughout the whole game, because as we all know from the Grinch, the larger your heart, the nicer you are, implying that Cagletta throughout her life cancelled out her natural buff to being kind due to how evil she was. And that is the end of this video. If you enjoyed, you know what to do.